Today's film is a horror from 2025 titled Dangerous Animals. The film opens with two foreigners, Heather and Greg, who have come to Australia with their friends. Estranged from them, Heather and Greg show up at Tucker's harbor to swim with the sharks. A vendor named Dave warns them to return, but they ignore him instead. When Tucker arrives, he gets a proper introduction from them and confirms that no one will be looking for them if they go missing. Now, he takes them on his boat and throws chum in the ocean to attract sharks. When the sharks start to show up, he cages the foreigners and lowers them into the water, allowing them to witness the majestic creatures up close. When Tucker pulls the foreigners back up, he stabs Greg in the neck and tosses him into the water as bait for sharks. As Tucker comes for Heather next, the scenes abruptly shift to the film's lead, Zephyr, who is a passionate surfer. Her story begins at the grocery store, where she buys herself a smoothie. As she slurps her smoothie, a man in formal attire approaches her and sarcastically asks if she has any jumper cables to spare, since the store is out of them. Ignoring him, Zephyr pays for her smoothie at the counter and walks into the back alley. There, she spills her smoothie in the trash can and takes out the ice cream tub from the cup, revealing that she shoplifts. The jumper cable dude catches her in the act and starts to bother her. Once again, she ignores him and gets back in her blue van. The dude, Moses, threatens to expose her to the shopkeeper, so she agrees to help him. She gives him a ride in her van, during which they click with one another. She drives him to his broken-down car, where he uses the van's jumper cables to restart his car's engine. In a turn of events, they end up having a one-night stand at Moss's place. The two get along well, so they exchange phone numbers. However, Zephyr doesn't want any strings attached, so she leaves before the dawn cracks. She stops on the street to steal some goods from a parked truck, where Tucker approaches her out of nowhere. Moses finds Zephyr gone, so he texts her. Zephyr gets distracted by his text for a moment, during which Tucker puts a bag over her head and suffocates her. She struggles to free herself, but Tucker is twice as strong, so he renders her unconscious easily. To make sure she stays unconscious, he injects her with some sedatives. He loads Zephyr in his truck and brings her on his boat. On the other hand, Moses grows suspicious of Zephyr's sudden disappearance and sets out to look for her early in the morning. He finds her van eventually and her phone inside it. Back in the boat, Zephyr gains consciousness and finds her mouth taped shut and one of her wrists cuffed to the bed. Next to her is another chained-up victim who turns out to be Heather. Zephyr screams for help, but Heather drags her into her disparity, knowing they're doomed. Contrary to them, Tucker is seen eating at the diner and enjoying the deck. Zephyr tries to uncuff herself and simultaneously hopes that someone from Heather's side might come looking for her, but Heather reveals that no help is coming. Zephyr doesn't give up and starts plotting an escape plan. Back in the city, Moses heads to the police station and files a missing persons report to find Zephyr. In the meantime, Zephyr chats with Heather and observes that she's wearing a swimsuit that comes with a metal wire to support the breasts. She borrows her suit and extracts the wire, which she then uses to unlock her handcuff. Amidst her struggle, Tucker arrives with breakfast, so the girls hide themselves under the sheets and quietly drink water from the cup he offers them. When he leaves, Zephyr continues to uncuff herself. All of a sudden, she starts to feel drowsy. Heather feels the same way and passes out. Zephyr realizes that Tucker has drugged them, so she keeps struggling to stay awake and uncuff herself, but the drugs start to take over her. Tucker comes to check up on her and seizes the wire immediately. Eventually, Zephyr faints as well. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied to a chair on the main deck. Tucker turns on the blinding headlights on the deck and sets up a camera. Next, he straps Heather to a harness that is attached to a crane via a cable. He carefully uses his knife to cut a lock of her hair before he lowers her into the ocean as bait. As she hangs above the water, we see sharks swimming under the water, whom Tucker had attracted with chum in advance. He slowly lowers Heather and feeds her to the shark, which he films with pleasure. Zephyr, who is helpless at the moment, screams at the top of her lungs and becomes disgusted by his freaky fetish. Tucker becomes euphoric and ecstatic at the sight of Heather being devoured by sharks, so he dances around in his briefs. He then glues Heather's lock of hair to the videotape, which contains the disturbing footage of her demise. He adds the tape to his collection, revealing himself to be a predator who has victimized many girls before Heather and Zephyr. The next morning, Zephyr finds herself chained to the bed again. As she screams in hopelessness, we see Heather's decapitated head floating in the water, which the sharks didn't eat. On the other hand, Moses and a search team are seen looking for Zephyr on the beach because she had told Moses about her passion for surfing. Moses doesn't find her, but he does find a broken surfboard. He picks it up, assuming it belongs to Zephyr. Back on the boat, Tucker arrives with breakfast for Zephyr, but she refuses to eat. He tells her to eat up since the sharks love a well-fed human. She lashes out at him, but soon realizes she's up against a psychopath with no human emotions. When Tucker leaves her be, she plots against him. She manages to get her hands on the pee bucket and breaks its handle, which has a sharp edge. On Tucker's side, he has breakfast at the diner on the boat and pleases himself with Heather's tape of demise. He then brings out the sedative injection to prepare Zephyr for the next show. He arrives in her room on tiptoes and prepares to inject her in the neck, but she stabs him with the pointy bucket handle. He falls to the ground and faints momentarily, which allows Zephyr to steal his keys and release herself from the cuff. When she tries to steal the fishing boat keys to escape, Tucker wakes up and grabs her arm. She shakes him off and tries to run out of the room, but Tucker manages to inject her. Before the sedatives kick in, she makes it to the control room and tries to contact the Coast Guards on the radio. Simultaneously, she witnesses a yacht in the nearest distance, so she runs to the deck and tries to signal them. Unfortunately for her, Tucker gets back on his feet and charges at her with a knife. Before he can do something, Zephyr tosses Tucker's camera in the water and makes a jump herself to get away from Tucker. Alas, the sedatives kick in, and she faints in the water. Before she drowns, Tucker pulls her out using a crowbar. The next morning, we see Moses, who still hasn't given up on the search. While the lifeguards look for Zephyr in the ocean near the beach, Moses accesses the CCTV footage of the street where he found Zephyr's van. While thoroughly monitoring the vehicles, he spots Tucker's yellow truck with his name sticker. Back on the boat, Zephyr wakes up and finds both of her hands cuffed to the bed this time and her mouth taped shut again. The scenes spin to Moses, whose intuition tells him to look up Tucker's business online. Soon, Tucker makes his way back to the deck. Moses dials Tucker's business number, which goes to voicemail, so he asks Tucker to call him back. Currently, Tucker heads to the electronics mart to buy a new camera before feeding Zephyr to the sharks. As the plot thickens, Moses runs out of patience and decides to meet him in person. He takes out his business address online, which leads him to the harbor. While looking for Tucker, he hops on the boat. Before leaving, he hears the muffled screams of Zephyr from under the deck, so he breaks into the boat and makes it to the basement where he discovers Zephyr chained to the bed. Zephyr becomes surprised to see someone she wasn't expecting and asks him to find something sharp to unlock her cuffs. While looking around, Moses calls the cops. But before he can address the real issue, Tucker arrives on the boat and charges at Moses like a raging bull. While choking him against the wall, he stomps on his phone and breaks it. During the fight, Moses gets his hands on the shopping bag with the camera. He swings it across Tucker's face and pins him to the ground. He then holds a rod against Tucker's neck and attempts to choke him, but Dave spawns from behind and whacks Moss's head with a bat, ultimately rendering him unconscious. Unaware of the real culprit, he comes forward to help Tucker, but Tucker kills him on the spot. He then chains Moses to Heather's bed, where Moses confesses his true feelings for Zephyr. Their moment is spoiled by Tucker, who arrives with a harness. This time, he victimizes Moses first and lowers him in the water. But weirdly, the sharks don't attack him. This infuriates Tucker to the point that he pulls Moses back on the deck and stabs him multiple times. Suddenly, he notes the Coast Guards patrolling in their chopper, so he brings both of his victims back inside to avoid getting caught. Moses, with his punctured lungs, takes his final breaths. Out of options, Zephyr breaks her thumb while attempting to break free from the cuffs. Tucker arrives with food again. She hides her hand, and once he leaves, she bites her thumb off. When the night falls, Tucker comes with the injection, only to find Zephyr gone. She emerges from behind the door and locks Tucker inside. She runs to the control room and tries to take the boat back to the deck, but Tucker manages to escape from the room and shut down the boat engines. He then comes after Zephyr, but she uses a pan to break a window and head out on the deck. Tucker comes after her and swings a knife at her. Now stabbed, she makes it to the deck from where she jumps into the water. She swims to the shore, but Tucker arrives on his speedboat and wrestles with her. He brings her back to the main boat, where he puts her in the harness and lowers her into the shark-infested water. Zephyr bravely climbs the harness cable and unclasps it from the crane. Now free, she swims among the sharks, who spare her. She gets back on the boat and uses a harpoon gun on Tucker. He falls in the water, where a giant shark devours him. Now truly free, Zephyr tends to Moses and lights a flare to signal the Coast Guards. Here, the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.